This is Shelley Kraft coming to you live on SNNLive. We're coming to you live from the LD Micro 11th Annual Main Event in Bel Air, California, 2018. I have with me Erez Antebi from Allot Limited. It's a publicly traded company, and I'm going to give you the symbol ALLT on NASDAQ. Welcome back to SNNLive.
Thank you, Shelley. Thanks for having me here.
Good to have you back. So let's get started with a brief overview of the company, and we'll go from there.
Okay. What we basically do is we enable communication service providers like Vodafone, Telefonica, AT&T, and so on to provide their customers, their end users, with secure broadband communications rather than just broadband communications.
Now, what's the history? Where did the company begin? What's some of the trajectory?
Well, in its core, Allot is a DPI company. Basically, we sit in the core of the network. We look at all the packets that go through it to and from the internet. We analyze them, and we allow the service provider, like Vodafone, to control it and figure out what to do with that, if it's a legitimate packet, not a legitimate packet, and so on. That's basically what we do.
So last we saw you was at the Invitational about 6 months ago or so. Any updates?
Well, we've had 2 quarters since. We've grown nicely. We're growing about 17% this year over last year. I think it's our growth is in the DPI sector mostly, but we're doing also very great advancement also on the security side. We have a very healthy funnel of customers that we're getting close to closing with on this. So yeah, it's looking good.
Who are your target customers?
Well, our target customers are really the communication service providers. Anybody who provides either mobile connectivity or broadband to home. So it would be in the U.S., it would be companies like Verizon, AT&T, Sprint, so on. In Latin America, it would be Telefonica, Telmex. In Europe, it would be Vodafone and companies like that. Our aim is really to enable them to do better things for their end users, consumers mostly.
What's your company's competitive advantage?
I think the main thing to look at is the fact that consumer security has not been a great success for communication providers till now. Most of them resell some sort of security app or some other means, which is getting relatively low penetration. We're talking 3%, 5%. The big difference with Allot is because of the way we implement security, the fact that it's very engaging, it's very easy, the consumer doesn't have to do anything, doesn't have to download anything or configure anything, and he also gets individualized reports on what we have actually done for him. The take-up rate, instead of being 3 or 5% as traditionally, is 30, 40, 50%. And this generates a huge new revenue for the communication companies.
What's the landscape, your competitive landscape like?
We're competing mostly with a variety of different security companies, but I think this market of providing a network-based security to the consumer market is relatively new. Most of the security companies deal with enterprise and with enterprise customers, not consumers. Those that deal with consumers usually do it through an app that you have to download, which, as I said before, gets a very low take-up rate. So we're bringing something new here that is driving huge revenues for customers. For example, Vodafone said earlier this year in their earnings call that for the security services that they provided their customers last year in 2017, they had revenues of 160 million euros just for the extra addition of security. That's a huge number, and that's growing.
What's your background?
Well, I used to be an engineer years ago. I spent about 20 years in the satellite communications business. I was the CEO of Gilat Satellite Networks, and after I left Gilat, I joined here. I joined Allot.
Now, you're a public company, so only tell me what you can tell me. What are some growth drivers in the near term?
I think, well, the first one and the biggest one is going to be security. as we get into more and more service providers and they start generating revenue, we will be getting a share of the new revenue that they are generating. But we're also seeing growth in our traditional DPI sector. I think the growth there is today mainly it has to do with congestion management, where operators using our technology are able to manage congestion on their cell towers much, much better, and as a result of that, they're able to significantly delay CapEx expenses of adding more cell towers, and that's a very, very interesting return on investment for them.
What's your website? Let's get it out there for more information, if you would.
Our website is www.allot.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, Erez Antebi, Allot Limited. It's a publicly traded company on NASDAQ, and the symbol is ALLT. I'm Shelley Kraft. This is SNNLive, and we're coming to you live from the LD Micro 11th Annual Main Event in Bel Air, California, 2018. Erez, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Shelley. Thank you. It was a pleasure.
My pleasure.